tell me a little about yourself?
Anyway, so my name is Charles Chilona, and what else did you ask me?
How old you are?
Oh, no, we don't. No. I'm way too vain to talk about my age. When I was an actor, my agent told me, you tell people I'm as old as I look.
Okay. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Chicago and lived there until I was about 21 years, I think 21 years old.
Can you tell me a little bit about your father, similar?
Okay, my father was born in Chicago also. His name comes with a story. My father was Sicilian. His parents were from Sicily. I don't know if you know anything about Sicilians, but not only are they unforgiving, but they're also very secretive people. My father was, to my knowledge, his name was Charles Michael. So I was Charles Jr. It wasn't until my father died when I was 21 that I found out that my father's real name was Vincenzo, very Italian. Now, because at that time Italians wanted to be as integrated as they could possibly be into culture, and my grandmother, knowing that Vincenzo was not an American name, asked her neighbors, so what do I call Vincenzo? The neighbors told my grandmother, you should call him Charlie. So he grew up with that and then later changed his name legally to Charles Michael. So anyway, so I should be actually Vincenzo Jr., not Charles Jr., which I like better.
And what did he do for a living?
He was in the bakery business his whole life. He owned a bakery. They lost it in the Depression. But he was in the bakery business his whole life.
Do you think you look like your father?
No. I look like my mother.
How would you describe him?
My father was very funny. My friends, when I got into high school and college, my friends all loved to be around my father because he could be extremely entertaining. He had this side of his personality, which actually, because I was thinking about how I was an actor and nobody in my family was an actor and all that stuff. But I'm just at this moment reflecting on the fact that he had this thing where he could turn on and be very funny for people. So I guess I always say, nobody in my family was an actor, but I guess he was an actor.
What is your earliest memory of your father?
Wow, that's hard. Probably my father driving. Those are some of my earliest memories, being in the back seat of the car and being excited about going someplace in the car.
Did your father have any expressions that he used a lot that you find yourself
My father had Italian expressions which made absolutely no sense. When he would get frustrated, he would spit out these Italian expressions which made no sense to me at all. And they were pretty nonsensical, what I later realized. But when he would get very frustrated, he would say, "Mangia Vincenzo."
What were his passions?
Oh, yes. That was the source of conflict in our house because I grew up in Chicago and I was a devoted Cub fan, I'm embarrassed to say, and remain so today. And he was a White Sox fan. And I remember him standing in the dark in the kitchen listening to the baseball game on the radio because it had gone into extra innings. in his pajamas and watching and listening, hunched over the radio. I also remember him hunched over the radio once when the Pope spoke from Rome.
Are there any skills that he had that you wish you had?
One skill that he had was that he could be very funny when he was upset and angry. I wish I had that skill. I'm not funny when I'm angry.
What most reminds you of him?
I think when I see old vintage cars, that reminds me of those cars, those old Packards and Chevrolets and
Yeah.
all those old cars that we had. As I said, I picture him sitting in those cars
Yeah.
with a cigarette in his hand and driving. And he was a great driver. I wish I had that skill. He was a really good driver and ironically died in an automobile accident that wasn't his fault.
So he taught you to drive?
Oh yes, yeah, he taught me to drive. And he always used to say, if I reached away from the wheel while I was driving with him in the car, he used to say to my sister, give your brother an orange to peel while he's driving, because maybe it'll keep his hands occupied, since his hands are not on the wheel.
Can you remember any good and terrible advice your father gave you?
Oh, my father, okay, because I was a child actor, my father's advice was not the parental reaction to having an actor in the family, but when I was I was young. When I was probably 10 years old when I got my first job in television, and he saw that paycheck, and he was like, "Wow, I work all week to make that." So he thought that was a real good idea, because he said, I just hope you don't have to work as hard as I have had to work in my life. So he thought this acting gig was a good gig because it pays well. He doesn't know about the times you're unemployed when you're an actor.
What's the proudest piece of news you ever told your father?
That I was graduating from college, because they worked very hard to put me through college. By the time you get to your senior year, you're beginning to doubt that you're ever going to make it. So when I came home and said, graduation is such and such a day, and here's your tickets to graduation, that was my biggest pride. So I graduated with a degree in journalism, and I now go out and start pounding the pavement looking for a job on a newspaper, because I wanted to work as a newspaper reporter. So I landed a job relatively fast, and I came home and announced that I found a job. I think I was offered $50 a week. Well, my father was devastated that he had put me through school and I had taken a job for $50 a week. And he wanted to know also, and he said, and you showed them your degree? I said, well, no, they didn't ask to see my degree. Well, he just couldn't understand that. He thought for sure you had to go for a job interview and that you were going to be paid way, way more money than that after investing in a college degree.
And what was the hardest thing you ever had to tell him?
Well, I never had to tell him, but I've always speculated about, I wonder, because I grew up in a very heterosexual world and lived my life as a heterosexual, I always had when my father was alive, when I was in high school, I always had a girlfriend, maybe two girlfriends. He saw me out with girls all the time. And I've speculated on, I wonder what my father would think if he now were alive, if he lived long enough to see me live my life as a gay man. That would, that would be interesting.
Can you remember the biggest disagreement you had with him?
Oh, I told my sister something that he said about her. It got back to him, and he was furious. He was furious that I had told my sister this. That was bad. He chased me around the house.
What achievement or event do you wish he could have been here to see?
Uh, I a lot of whatever I've become successful in, I would have liked to for I would have liked for him to live to see me be successful as an actor. I think he would have been proud to see me as a professional actor on the stage for as long as I was. I think he would have been proud to see my ability in journalism, and I think he would be very proud of the fact that I have the successful restaurant. I regretted that he never lived to see me become a parent, and to have grandchildren.
Do you find yourself viewing him differently as you get older yourself?
No, I appreciated him for what he was when he was alive, you know.
Hmm. And do you find yourself measuring yourself against him as a father, as a provider, as a businessman?
Yes, I do a lot because my father was an enormous caretaker. It's what he thrived on, taking care of his family, he took care of everything in our family. Not only financially and everything, but just generally speaking, he ran the show at home. My mother was not, she took care of our physical needs and she worked part-time and stuff, but he was the one that managed life, and I do the same. Not every man does that.
We've obviously spoken a lot about your father and his life and your relationship with him. Are you able to sum up his personality in just a few words?
Uh, Serious and seriously entertaining. Um, a hard-working man who had an amazing sense of humor and a sense of timing, comic timing. Um, Great storyteller. Yeah, he was a great storyteller.